Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Best Practices for Recurring Revenue and Billing. This webinar is brought to you by Renewed, the open network for specialized subscription membership and event professionals. My name is Stephanie Williford and I am your host for today's event. During the presentation, please stay on mute. If you're unable to hear or see or have any technical issues, you can private message me through the chat in Zoom. If you have questions for today's speaker, you can submit them throughout the presentation in the chat box. We will have a live Q&A at the end. After the presentation, you'll also have access to the slides and the recording at renewed.net/resources, and we'll send an email out once that's been posted. We encourage you to share takeaways from this event on social media using #renewed and to continue the discussion afterwards in our guild group. So on to today's session. I'd like to introduce Kathy Sexton. She is the CEO of Subscription Insider. And in her role, she works with some of the subscription industry's leading global brands. So she really understands what's working and what's not working across the industry for recurring billing. We're really in for a great discussion today. With that, Kathy, I'll let you take it away.
All righty. Well, thank you, Stephanie. And I'm really excited to be here. I have a lot of information today. So what my approach was going to be was try and get through these slides very quickly, and some of them are reference slides, so you can go back and look at the eye chart.
Another webinar going on in the back.
So I'm going to share my screen, and we should be able to get going here. All right, does everybody see the slides versus presenter view?
We see the slides, thanks.
Woohoo, okay. So briefly, what I'm going to do is just cover how recurring payments work very briefly, challenges and opportunities, and some different types of best practices and all of that. And for those of you who don't know what Subscription Insider is, we really focus on best practices for operations. We're a niche media company like everybody here, and we focus on all sorts of different types of companies across the subscription economy with many of the types of products and services that you also offer. We do have a conference coming up, so if this content today is something that you really want to dive into more in depth, I totally recommend that you check out the subscription show. We'll have briefings from American Express, Visa, Warner Media, CNBC, Fortune, and many, many others. In fact, David Foster is actually going to be moderating a keynote panel on value creation. So I'm really excited for that. And I'd invite you to check that out at Subscription Show. Renewed members have a special 20% discount on any ticket. So use the SS Renew promo code. And for those of you who want to save a few more pennies, other than the 20%, we have a price increase coming up at the end of the month, which is tomorrow. So with that, let's dive into it. I'm going to briefly go through, this is the primer. So for those of you who are invoicing and really considering getting onto recurring payments, I want to walk through kind of the elements of what a payment is, because this is really critical to make sure you understand as we dive into decline recovery and other types of tactics and analytics, that you really understand what this is. So as you look at this on the left-hand side, that is your customer, and the issuer is their bank, the credit card issuing bank. In the middle here, you can see the subscription management software. That could be a cart, your website connected to subscription management, and then billing. That might be several elements of your tech stack. But ultimately, as you start working your way into the payment ecosystem, you'll have a payment gateway and processor, which sometimes can be combined, sometimes not. And you have what's known as the Global Interchange Network. And that is where all your payments go for processing through the various payment issuers and brands such as American Express, Visa, and MasterCard. And over on the right-hand side is you. You are and your merchant account bank. So very quickly, when you look through how a payment works, first of all, your customer sees your subscription offer, they read your amazing copy, and they fill out an order page and they start their payment. So everything's good. Then at this point, your gateway, your software will take that order in a matter of milliseconds, go through and understand if that customer has the ability to pay you. And then what happens is on the way back, the issuing bank will go through the interchange and tell your gateway and processor if there's money to be paid, at which point you tell your customer that they can continue with their purchase, or there's an issue with their credit card and they need to fix it. So from there, you know, through your subscription management software and your cart, there's communication to your customer, and you will also know if there was a payment successful or if there was an issue. Then from there, the gateway will store all the transaction results, accepted, declined, and it took literally just a few seconds to do all of this. So at this point, your subscriber is now documented, and you basically can start implementing the subscription because they've paid. Now, this assumes, so your subscriber now thinks that they've paid for the transaction and they want the goods, you're starting to ship them, you're releasing them to your website to access your content, but the payment process is actually not done. So what now needs to happen is your payment now needs to go from the issuing bank over to your merchant account bank. And this is part of what's known as the settlement process. And then, actually, I think I'm a slide ahead here. So this is the settlement process, and that is the final step for you. And it's very critical to know each step of the process because there's costs, there's time frames. So some merchant bank accounts and some processors are really, really quick at giving you your money. Some are really, really slow. So you need to understand all of these as you really think through a recurring payment. And speaking of recurring payments, when you do submit that recurring payment, that process that I just really, really quickly went through happens again. Sometimes, depending on how you have programmed it, it's done in a batch mode where all the payments go through that process, where they're authorized, they're accepted or declined, and if they're accepted, they go through the settlement process and ultimately into your merchant account bank. And that could happen also on specific anniversary dates as they come up. So different people have different strategies for the recurring payment processes. So any questions on that before I dive into the next section, which is challenges and opportunities for recurring payments? I have a ton of info, so.
I have a
Yep,
quick question.
Greg?
So people like to say fast, good, or cheap, pick two. Does that apply in this situation? Can you find somebody who's fast, good, and cheap?
That's a really good question. I have some information coming up. Actually, my next slide is part of the challenges and opportunities that I wanted to bring up to you. So when you think through what the challenges and opportunities for, and this is what the payment issuers and the banks call us if you're taking recurring payments. It's card not present, recurring payments. And there's very kind of specific rules. There's actually specific setups like a recurring flag and other things to make sure you're set up correctly. And these are some of the challenges and opportunities that I've kind of outlined. One is the technology, and this is a big one. When we think about our tech stack, there's so many different vendors out there. Some are all in one, and some are best of breed specialists, and some are kind of in between. And you have to kind of figure out the puzzle pieces that's right for your business. And the other challenge is that some vendors talk a good game, but they don't truly support recurring. and they don't truly understand our vertical in terms of publishing in media. So you need to really do some good due diligence. And if you're ever looking for some questions to ask, I certainly have a list. I could certainly share that with somebody if they're interested. But the technology is so, so critical. If you do get the right technology, you're going to be not spending, you're going to pay the right cost. It's going to be effective, efficient, and it's going to be easy to manage. Some technology is cheap, but oh my goodness, you're doing so many things manually. They don't provide great reports and other things. And there's some that are really good, let's say at the processing, but they don't understand recurring or even publishing or in media. So you really need to make sure you ask a lot of questions. The next issue or its challenge and then the opportunity is what the industry calls breakage. Breakage is a term of when payments fail. And that's your involuntary churn. Now, there's opportunities because there's many tools and services out there that even the deadest of dead credit cards can be recovered without reaching out to your customers. So, the technology has evolved. So if you do have a stack of dead payments, you could probably recover those or a fraction of those. Fraud is really an emerging thing to understand, because even with smaller volume merchants, those fraudsters, they are using any company and any opportunity they can to pressure test your stolen credit cards against your buying process. There's a concept called friendly fraud, where other people in the company or families will extend the use of the subscription beyond where it's supposed to. So there's different types of fraud. And then the other challenge when you're really moving into recurring is really understanding the operations part of it, because there's the financial element, there's a technical element, there's a marketing element that we all need to really be on top of. And the opportunity is if you really have kind of that C-suite view and KPIs, and I'm going to show you some example KPIs, you can really manage it much more effectively. But a lot of times, and a big mistake that I see, is it getting shunted down to somebody in finance or shunted down to the guy that set up the technology, and it's a little bit too siloed. This is the heart and soul of your business, and it really needs to have a special focus. And the most successful companies I see do that. So the next thing I wanted to do, just in terms of the challenges and opportunities, is just to share a couple of stats from friends of ours in the industry. One is one of the issuers in Visa, which is Visa. So 26.3% of recurring payments fail. That's what they are seeing across their network. So obviously, a big opportunity is addressing involuntary churn, and that's regardless of any subscription business. From Recurly, our friends at Recurly, the top 3 reasons for renewal credit card declines are a generic decline, insufficient funds, or temporary hold. And this is really important, and I want to get you thinking about this. Whatever partner you have, it's really important to understand why things are being declined versus just that it's declined and resubmitting it. Because if you understand why something has been declined, you can then adjust your follow-up strategy so it'll be more effective. So if it's insufficient funds, perhaps you retry at a different date. If the card actually is dead, then you have a different choice of options, and so forth and so on. I'm going to get into that in a little bit more detail. I reached out to a couple of other friends in the industry that you probably wouldn't speak to as part of kind of the renewed system, but these are different types of companies. FlexPay is one. Vendicia, Recurly has these types of offerings. Gravy does it in a little bit of a different way, but these are companies that have services where they will basically take the dead of deadest cards, and they will figure out what the best number to retry is, and based on that, they will basically take a cut out of the recovery. So what people do is when cards are really dead, let's say they'll give them 100 cards and they recover 30 of them, then they'll split the revenue with that customer. So it's kind of a performance-based recovery. And there's just a growing segment of companies that do that. So FlexPay's is very aware of what they will call false decline rates, just because of a number of different things. And they pulled out for me their total failure rate and then compared corporate cards, because I knew that, and this is like data as of this month. Their VP of marketing pulled this number out for you guys. So what they're seeing, corporate rates, cards failing at a rate of about 20%. And then another quick thing is from Vendicia, they have a service similar to FlexPay. They do it in a different way, but just some of their numbers that they're seeing, just in terms of subscription fatigue and leading to forced involuntary churn. They just make sure that their card isn't updated, so it'll churn instead of voluntary. And then the Mathers quote, I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but digital newspapers recently have been experiencing a very high churn rate. So that's Mathers data. So any questions on that? I have one last challenge that I see across the industry, and it's I'm going to be quoting, and you see a lot of data and a lot of terminology. Across the industry, what I see, particularly in payments, are people using a lot of the same words and quoting all sorts of data, but they might say that their churn rate is X, Y, or Z, but it's calculated completely differently. So I really encourage all of you, when you're talking to vendors, to really question them what they mean by specific things. And if they're quoting particular trends or data, that you really understand exactly what that means, because there's so many apples and oranges. It's rampant, and I see a lot of confusion and leading to poor choices in technology and partners and other things. So any questions on that?
I did see a question come in from Greg earlier in the chat. I'm not sure if it got answered though, about the rate. It was a little bit further back in terms of the rate changing based on whether the recurring charge is annual or monthly.
That was a statistic from Visa. It was like 23.6 or something. Is that based on annual recurring charges or monthly recurring charges?
That's an overall blend, Greg. So that's not specific to annual or even B2B. So that's just kind of their overall blended rate.
Great, thanks. I think that's all the questions we have. So if you want to keep going and encourage everybody in the audience, feel free to post any questions you have in the chat throughout. We'll make sure to get them addressed.
Okay. All right. Now I have a couple of eye charts, and these are, I'm just going to go through, because my goal today is to make you aware of what are some of the tactics and strategies that people are using, and then we can maybe pull some of them out, for use in your business. So the first is processing fees. When you look at that whole process that I outlined, there's a lot of different places when you're working with recurring where fees occur. So that global interchange network is going to be the biggest kind of fee that you'll typically have. You'll have your processor fee or gateway fee, or if it's combined, a combined fee, and your merchant account will obviously have fees. This is just an example from one particular vendor that I believe is an entertainment vendor. where the green is basically their interchange fees versus all their other fees. So you can see the interchange kind of processing fees that they have are extremely high. And it's really critical that you monitor all the different fees and understand what's happening. And so you can understand changes, you can understand potential blips that might be mistakes or something happening with your account. So when you're looking at your processing fees, there's a couple of things to look for. MCC, does anybody know what that stands for? Merchant category codes. Woohoo! So let's say you're not listed in media and publishing, but because you are publishing in about nutraceutical business, I'm making this up, somebody set you up as the nutraceutical merchant category code. That is probably costing you a lot of money because certain merchant category codes are deemed risky by the payment processors and issuers. And ergo, if you have a more risky merchant category code, you will be paying more money. So that's something to audit and make sure you understand what merchant category code you have. That's a big one. The data that you submit, so verify that what your cart and your gateway is submitting all the required information, so that way you're not getting penalized. And then if you're doing some international ordering and have subscribers and you're using other types of products, those could impact your pricing as well. For those of you who want to kind of really look at processing and know where to focus, I'd encourage you to, if you can, talk to your processor and really understand how they're charging you. And maybe you can negotiate a different mix of fees based on how your product mix is and what they're looking at. So there should be somebody there that you could talk to, maybe do an audit and understand where you could save money in the processing and other fees that they might have. So these are just some of the different other things to think about when you're talking to your processor and acquirer. Is you can pay a la carte or you could pay a bundled fee. And so if you pay a la carte, you'll see everything outlined for the interchange and the gateway and all that stuff. If it's bundled, you just need to understand what's included and what's not include that. So just be mindful to understand what's bundled and what's not, and your payment partner should be able to explain all of that. So I'm quickly moving on to the concept of order capture. And any questions there before I go on? Then I'll keep going because I got a ton of info here. I want to really share and just make sure you guys are aware of everything here. So I want to ask you guys this quiz, and when you submit a charge, it's approved or not. And so there's this approval rate percentage of concept that you should be really tracking very closely as you manage your recurring payments. And so here's which approval rate is better out of all your payment submissions. Is 95 better than 90 versus 75? Well, it kind of like sounding like a consultant, it depends, because here's something for you to think about. Let's say your initial approval rate of 1,000 cards, 950 of them got approved. So you have a 95% approval rate, which means that you had a 5% decline rate. But then you decide to do what's known as decline recovery. and you do 6 retries to try and recapture that payment. And that had a 39% recovery rate. So you had a quote unquote approval rate of 79%. And what that also means is that you had a retention rate with that additional processing and retries of 97%. Now, the reason why this is important, it's not only important for you to track, but as you talk to your payment partners, they may see that you're retrying a number of different things and see a 39% success rate. And if they don't understand who you are and what you're doing, they may or they may not decide to charge you more because that they would deem you a higher risk because of the retry success rate. So it's important for you as you talk to your payment partners for them to understand what you're doing and for you to make sure that they're not penalizing you for doing what you should be doing anyway, which is trying to capture some of these declined cards. So it's important for you to understand how they think and for you to stay on top of these numbers. So the success formula for this is to make sure that you have great payment partners with recurring expertise, that the data that you're submitting includes your merchant category code. That's a great merchant category code. You want your CVV, the security codes, and any flags or indicators. There's a recurring flag indicator in use that you should have and have programmed in your recurring payment setup. So that's very important factor for success, and your analytics is also important. So this slide talks about your initial orders, and I've talked a lot about the CVV and some other things like the recurring indicator. But what I'd like to focus on here is the expected responses. So you should be able to see from your payment partner why something was declined, and you can then develop a communication strategy based on that decline information. So these are kind of typical ones, approved, woohoo, you hope 100% of them are approved, but they do not honor that card. It's an invalid account number, invalid security code, the CVV, invalid expiration. That card has been flagged as lost or stolen. And then there's a whole bunch of other codes. And that's important for you to understand because, as I said, you could program either in your subscription management program or in your email system or other systems that you might have for credit card, payment card recovery. These are really important for you to act on in different ways. Now, when you are capturing your orders, sometimes there's rejected orders, and it's important to know that those rejected orders are not declined orders. Rejected orders mean that there's something technical going on that you just need to fix, and if you fixed up the setup, then that should go through and either be accepted or declined for some reason. So I want to now dive into decline recovery, which is one of the biggest strategies in recurring payments that everyone kind of needs to really think about and begin to learn how to master. Any questions before I dive into the next part?
Kathy, we did have a couple of questions come in. One thing, if you could you elaborate on why retries make you look riskier to the processor?
If you do too many retries, you look like a fraudulent vendor that's abusing the system.
Should you be spacing them out over time, or how do you what's recommended in terms of number of retries?
I actually have some data on that. That's going to be going into the decline recovery. It's a very important question, and it's a hotly debated issue. It's a science and an art type of thing, and but the thing is, the biggest mistake is doing too many retries in too quick of a period. And that will get you flagged as somebody that's trying to abuse the system.
Okay, great. So yeah, we'll take a look at that data. And then I think that question came from Shannon. So if she would like any additional
Okay.
collaboration on that, we'll let her question come in later on in the discussion.
Okay. Perfect. So we're going to talk about decline recovery next. And decline recovery is the industry term for, you got one of those decline codes, what do you do next? So congratulations. You've got a subscriber. Now we've got to retain them. And we all know through a lot of the great programs at Renewed how to do great onboarding, really to message and engage and all of that. But at the end of the day, when that payment is run and that payment is not successful, that's going to be what we call involuntary churn. So there's different things that can impact how successful a payment is. And looking at your analytics and seeing the difference and tracking them over time will help you with your own subscriber base to understand exactly what's driving it for you. But the payment method can impact that. So American Express has higher order value on in general. A lot of people now are trying to use debit cards for payments, even for business. So the billing frequency can impact the order value. So a lower value ticket versus a higher value. I mean, I know people that are doing recurring revenue with order values of $1,500 and above $2,000. So you don't have to be a $30 recurring revenue type of company. It's for everybody, but order value with the higher ticket order value is definitely going to be requiring a lot of finesse. The initial renewal bill, loosely, and this is this stat is from Paul Larson Consulting Team, and what they're seeing with their publishing media clients. The initial renewal bill is at about an 85% success rate. So you'll want to do recovery tactics first. That's account updater, retrying, and doing other things. And with that, without contacting the cardholder, can bring that up to about a 94 to a 98% success rate. So basically, you retry your card, and then you want to submit it to account updater. You want to then retry it again based on the account updater, or use some other types of tools. So in the ideal world, again, account updater, American Express, Visa, everybody has a program. So you should make sure that your gateway is connected and leveraging all the updater programs. Some platforms have their own programs that are similar to updater. So you need just to really understand what your partners have and if they're using them, and because it's so critical to make sure that the cards are updated and then resubmitted, and that can save basically your subscriber. I want to show you two different things that I'm looking at you, Greg. This is something that I know this is something you could learn to love. This is an eye chart. But this is what one company does. They track the profitability of each retry effort. It's pretty detailed, but basically they want to understand. So you can see the codes over there mapped to the decline codes that I had talked about. Declined card, and each bank, issuer, Visa, MasterCard have their own series of codes. Again, your payment partner should be able to pass that along to you so you can monitor that. But what you can see this particular company is doing is they're looking at the decline codes, they are bucketing them, and they're managing and understanding what the ROI is for each basically attempted submission, and what's that is costing them, either through account updater fees, additional processing fees, and things like that. So to my other point, more is not better. So you want to be smart about when you retry different cards, and you just, because they are really looking out for abuse, and you don't want to get caught into that. You don't want to get caught into that. So the next question, which probably comes, is like, okay, so when do we retry? So it really, again, depends on what type of cards you have. But a lot of times people will try Fridays, the 15th and the 30th. There are platforms that will take over this manual, will take this over for you and just handle the retries for you and space them out. But I will show you, this is a B2B company here. Their guy in charge of payments created this heat map based on their payments so that they could understand when to retry, because they were doing it manually. And like, well, they would program their platform on what to do. And you can see the first day of the month is awesome, as well as the end of the month. That's when people get paid, and the middle of the month. But then there's certain days of the week, and you could see, when there's really bad days of the week. So you want to make sure you're thinking about it, you're tracking about it based on your specific customer base. It might be that for you, this heat map, if you did something like this, it would look completely different. So I'm guessing that there would be some similar patterns, but you might have something that's just unique to your business that might be different than this. Another thing is, which I've mentioned, is the indicator. So there's a flag that you need to make sure that you have set up. This is a best practice that says, I'm a recurring biller, so I'm going to be submitting this. And if they know you're a recurring biller, then you will be treated a little bit differently than people who are not a recurring biller. So that's really important. The next thing is the merchant category code, and that's the business category which the processors and the issuers view your business. It impacts the fees, it impacts the approval rates, it impacts a lot of things. So you want to make sure with your payment partner that you are able to get into the most ideal merchant category code as possible, because it's costing you money or making you money. The last thing here is on this section, and I think is dead payments. To quote badly Monty Python, they're not truly dead, they're only slightly dead. And there's so many different ways to do this. Account updater, there's payment card recovery tools. So FlexPay, Vendicia Select, Recurly, all these platforms have tools, which I said, for a cut of the truly dead cards, they will try and recover them. There's also services like Gravy, which will also, on a performance basis, take your problem children accounts and try and call and get new credit cards from them and get the revenue that you need from them. So there's different approaches to this, and a lot of emerging services and tools out there to help you with the dead payments. So Dunning, when you talk to Dunning, a lot of people don't understand what it is. You, I suspect, are pretty up to speed on this, but just to make sure, Dunning, it's communicating with your customers and making sure that they're updating their payment. Otherwise, they're going to not have access to your subscription. So there's just 5 do's for your Dunning, which, in terms of best practices, if you're communicating about a lapsed account, the language and the tone, where you might start friendly and end up more urgent, is really a best practice to think about. So think about how and when and where, if you're online, can you communicate to them via your website or your app, beyond email communications, or even beyond somebody calling them up. So those are things to think about. And here's some examples here for your benchmarking pleasure. And then I also talked to Recurly, and here's some interesting dunning data that they have. So this is, when they send out the email, what's the recovery rate of that customer who had a lapsed subscription? And then this one here, so this is in general, and then we were able to pull B2B. So you can see that the B2B is actually higher than just the general blended B2B and B2C. So some data for you to think about and benchmark your own kind of dunning programs against. So the next and last section is just examples of how different companies are tracking payments. I don't expect all of you guys to be doing this, but I want, my purpose of showing you these is to create awareness of what some of the biggest companies are doing to track the efficiency, the profitability, and the performance of their payments. And what I'd encourage you to do is to look at these and figure out, how can I create a KPI dashboard for my management team and people working in payments in my company to manage this on an ongoing basis. So that's the goal. I'm going to blow through this very quickly, and we'll be done in about a few minutes. So here's just a sample of a lot of different things that you could track. You could absolutely go crazy. What you need to do is understand what's important. Obviously, refund, retention, your approval rates. There's a lot of key information that you can and should be getting pulled from your payment partners. So here's an example of approval rates by method. So charting that over time is really critical, because if you see a blip, maybe there's something that happened in relation to your business in that particular type of card, or something happened. So it's important for you to track this over time and see what the initial approval rates are. The authorization to deposit ratio is a key KPI that many companies utilize. So that's, looking at what got authorized and what ultimately made it to your bank account. Decline reasons. Here are mapping through over time the decline reasons. And what you would want to do there is just understand the blips and the changes. Highlight something that changes over more than 5%, so pops out type of thing. But if you suddenly see something that's anomalous to what has been your historical kind of performance, then you know that there's either a problem maybe with your payment gateway, something changed on your website, or something else happened. I haven't talked about this, but this is the bank identification number. So if you are working with a lot of different types of customers, especially internationally, you can, it's important to understand the approval rates, because you can, I don't know if you knew this, but you can set up your payment gateway to accept or not accept, let's say, debit cards, and accept or not accept different types of cards, which may be important for you, especially if you're taking international or other types of transactions. So if track the BIN number, the bank identification number, and you can see what's working and not working based on your client and subscriber base. Account updater, making sure you're tracking that. The card mix, payment method mix, chargebacks, chargeback reasons, another examples. just even visualizing where your fees are so you can see them. I'm a visual person. I love seeing all this stuff in pretty colors because that's how I grok information. And then understanding, you know, your interchange fees. So that's just kind of blowing through what a lot of like companies, B2B companies are using to really understand how they are effectively managing their subscriptions. So kind of wrapping it up, your payment partners, they're key. They should be able to provide you this information that I talked about today, and that way you can pull it in. Make sure as you're talking to your technology vendors and your payment partners to make sure you're speaking the same language in terms of data definition and what things mean. No question is too small. I've seen it so many times where people think they're communicating and they're doing this. Make sure that reporting is included. There's some platforms where the reporting is really, really bad. So if you're looking at something before you sign on any dotted lines, make sure you go in and really see how it's managed, what the reports are, how easy or hard it is to pull those reports outside of a sales demo or other type of situation. And there's some platforms that are just brilliantly wonderful in terms of doing cohort analysis and pressing a couple buttons and you see beautiful reports kind of based on what I saw. So it's really all over the map. But the core thing is whatever is important to you from what I just saw, create a simple dashboard. And then the final kind of comment I have is never assume you're one and done. You cannot set up a recurring payment platform and process for a company and think it's going to run itself. It needs to be actively managed. So so there you go. That's the quick thing. And just as a reminder for us, we're going to use the subscription show renewed promo code for subscription show, because we're going to be diving in a lot of these details and more at the subscription show. So any questions? And I can just get out of my presentation here.
Kathy, that was great. Wow.
Yes, thank you so much. We did have several questions come in, and I really appreciate all the insights you've shared. I know we ran into a lot of these challenges when we started implementing recurring revenue last year, but it has been fun a year later to see the orders and payments just rolling in. So there is a definitely a great benefit to that. So a couple of the questions that we had were around the MCC, the merchant code. Is there a best one for getting the most favorable processing rates?
I think, the best one is one that really reflects your business. We're all in media and publishing, so we want to make sure, go for that. It's pretty, it's not too risky unless you're in you know, a risky gambling, porn, or other type of publishing. But I think for all of us, just doing kind of a standard media publishing merchant code is probably the way to go.
Have you ever seen changing your MCC to hurt? So if you end up in a riskier category, and how do you make sure you don't do that?
Well, just do an audit. Work with your payment partners and do an audit of how you were listed. And if you're listed incorrectly, you just make sure it gets updated. So it's just asking the question, understanding where you've been placed, and talking to your partners to make sure it's correct.
Is there a way to make sure that if it's not correct, that you're not moving into a worse one?
Well, once the merchant category code is set, it's kind of like, you know, you should be set and in that merchant category code. I mean, I always recommend just checking the setup like anything else on an annual basis, but it's not like you're going to be randomly put onto a different merchant category code. What typically happens is people don't know that they need to be thinking about this. And so whoever's setting it up, just like, oh, this one, oh, they're doing publishing for pharmacy sales. Okay, I'll do the pharmacy things. And then, you're blissfully moving along and you're in a risky merchant category code. So it's more about just being purposeful about looking at what it is and making sure it's correct and that nobody inadvertently set you up incorrectly.
Got it. Okay. And would you mind sharing what platform Subscription Insider has chosen to process your recurring payments?
Well, I have a love-hate relationship with some of what we have set up. And that's another whole thing. We actually use Stripe, and we use WooCommerce on the front end. So there's a lot of things I don't like about it. Like anything else, we make it work. We pull what we need to manually. But there's a lot of great platforms that are out there, and so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so
I did myself into a hole.
I can relate to that. We use Stripe as well, and there's definitely pluses and minuses for sure.
Yeah.
I know, and Bill posted earlier in the chat a link to a comparison. I'll post that over in Guild as well, so people can grab that, and we can be great to continue the discussion on who's using what and what they like and don't like.
Yeah. There's one thing. There's one thing to mention. There's when you think about processors, so Stripe's a great one for people kind of getting started and learning and doing all that stuff. And then as you grow in sophistication, you start looking at other things. There's a company called Lytle that was designed way back when for recurring card not present. And they designed so many great tools, and they designed it so that little teeny tiny merchants like us, because we are viewed as teeny tiny merchants, even if you have $30 million, they're still teeny tiny compared to many companies. They designed it so that the small merchant could have access to their platform along with the big boys. And so they actually got bought by Vantiv, which got bought by WorldPay. So they had such a great platform, they kept getting gobbled up. So I guess my point is to say that if your company has reached the level of sophistication where Stripe is not delivering the data and the analytics and everything that you need, there's tools and resources out there for you that can easily work for smaller non-billion-dollar recurring revenue companies that are designed. So don't be afraid to search those out if you're looking for that next step.
Great, thanks for that suggestion. Another question we have: do you have any data on first-time rebill or recurring success rate for annual versus monthly versus quarterly charges?
I do, not off the top of my head, but I do have that data. So annuals in general, annuals will not be as successful as monthlies because you're hitting that monthly on an ongoing basis. So you've got a whole year for that card to go stale, for a whole year for something to happen, or if it's a corporate card that person can leave the company and all of that. So in general, while not remembering the exact specifics, your annuals are not going to be as successful as the monthlies just because of that.
Yeah, that's great info. It's interesting. We've actually seen a large decline rate recently because we have a portion of our audience that are graduating and moving, and so the zip code is no longer matching. So our monthlies are actually a high for that segment. Interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yep.
Not something we expected, but we did look into.
Have you tried Account Updater and getting updated zip codes?
We have not tried that, so I will look into that. We do have, I see one other question in here. So if this one is not yours and I missed yours, please feel free to post again in the chat. We have a question from William about they're a membership organization providing financial information, research, and educational programs, which each has a different MCC code with Stripe, and they're not getting the rate for the codes from Stripe. How are you able to find that information?
So that's when you're sophisticated and you want to start moving up with more sophisticated tools. That's exactly this. Stripe is a really, really great tool, and they're building everything in, but it's a little bit more of a black box. And it might be that they're beginning, you know, maybe they will provide more information, but that's, if it's such important information, you either need to partner with a subscription management platform that can pull the information in a different way, or it can, you know, but you might want to be changing processors if you really want to understand that. But you should be able to understand your MCC code.
There's not just like a single source where you can look that up, what the rate is per MCC code, or like a percentage or something like that.
Oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. I'm
William,
reading
do
it.
you want to elaborate on that and make sure that I?
Sure, thanks, Kathy. And so we could see the codes, and we would fall
Okay.
naturally
Right.
into one of the three, but it doesn't appear that there's different prices for each of the three, as you suggested, or if there are, they're not disclosing it to me, as I've been on help support with Stripe.
Mhm. So it could be that it could be that just the three categories that you have just happen to be similar pricing versus, you know, other choices. So it could be that. I mean, I'd
Sure.
have to know a little bit more of the details, honestly,
Sure.
to give you a better answer.
Sure, cool, thanks.
So David, if you had a $10 a month versus $30 a month, you would see a change. I wouldn't think a significant change, but if you're doing, so the question is, if you're doing a lot of debit card transactions, you're probably going to see some, you know, more, a higher percentage of maybe credit ceiling or other types of things if you move it up. You know, so it'll change.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not huge. It's not like it's $100, but you know.
Thanks.
Any
Well,
other questions?
We should have had another 20 people on this call from our company. That was great.
Good.
Yes,
Good.
this is excellent. And David, good news, the recording will be available soon, so you can send that out to them. And as Kathy mentioned, the subscription show is in New York, November 1st through 3rd. She goes into a lot of great speakers and experts in this area, goes into a lot more detail than we're able to cover in just an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of topics to cover here. So encourage you guys to check out the conference, and remember that you can use code SSRenew to get a 20% discount. We do thank everybody for attending, and thank you, Kathy, so much for sharing all this data and insight. I know I found it tremendously valuable. We hope that you will continue the discussion in our Guild community at guild.co. You can find us on there. And at renewed.net, you will find all of the recordings from past webinars, our calendar for upcoming events, and other good resources. So thank you again for attending today's webinar with Renewed, the open network for specialized subscription, membership, and event professionals. We look forward to seeing you again soon.